Hi, everyone. I'm Miguel, co-founder of Otis AI, and welcome to the Rapid Returns Show powered by MeetOtis.com. Today, I have Sheera from Zygo with me on the show, and they're going to share with us insights into how they're growing their business and scaling through digital marketing. My challenge for today is to provide a rapid returns tip to Sheera to help them scale their startup with digital advertising. Let's dive into the interview to understand more about scaling. So, Sheera, can you provide an overview of your company, including who your target customers are and what kind of problem you're trying to solve?
Sure, and thanks for having me on. So our company is called Zygo. We're the first and only streaming audio underwater. So when you're swimming, being able to listen to a podcast, music, etc. But then we also have an app of guided workouts similar to Peloton and Tonal, where it can guide you through an upbeat workout. And we are trying to solve the problem of there was only MP3 players that existed before us, and we listen and we stream all day long. And so our challenge was, how do we create the streaming option underwater? And so the hardware was necessary to crack that code. And so we really see the target audience in different tiers, but everyone who swims today for fitness, whether they're a triathlete or just a recreational swimmer, and age agnostic. And then also we see our latent and market potential for those that know that swimming is good for them, but they haven't been inspired to swim because it's monotonous and it's intimidating and it's
Mm.
boring. And so we're not just going after the serious swimmer. We are, our benchmark is if you won't drown in a pool, you're a swimmer. And so anyone that would ever swim, that's who we're going after.
That's amazing. And how did your idea evolve over time uh, as you grew your business? So, how has it developed so far? What did it start with, and what have you learned in your product now?
Yeah, well, originally we were actually just a swim class that we thought was the business. It was like the soul cycle of swimming, and it was very clear that the hardware was the actual business. And so once we pivoted into the hardware piece, we at first thought we would approach coaches because there's a one-way walkie-talkie functionality. So we thought it'd be coaches and individual consumers,
Mm.
and it became pretty clear that while the coaching function was important and it's a good utility, our main core market is just the consumer that wants to stream audio underwater. And so it's really grown into focusing on that consumer. And kind of the tip of the iceberg are triathletes or people who already swim for fitness today, since we don't have to change behavior. So we're not trying to market to people to convince them to swim. We know they already
Mm.
swim. And so it's just
Yeah,
trying to offer them something to enhance their experience overall.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And where are you with the business right now? Have you raised funding, and what stage of the startup are you now at?
Yeah, I'm waiting to feel like I'm not a startup 5 years later, but we've been developing the product for 5 years. It took us about 3 years to develop, get our patents, and actually start shipping product to customers. So we shipped our first product in September of 2020. So we've been in market, a little over 2 years actually selling to customers. We've raised on two, it's a bit of semantics, but maybe a pre-seed and a seed round, both on safe documents with different caps, and we've a total raise of about $6 million, which was over the course of the 5 years. It wasn't, just one infusion. And for our fundraising journey,
Mm.
we have no institutional capital. The biggest checks being written by family offices.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So now that you've raised these rounds of funding, you've really developed your product market fit, and you're starting to scale the business towards your next milestone, which might be the Series A, right?
Yeah, we're actually in the middle of maybe like a smaller, just because of the market appetite and what's going on right now, of maybe a small second seed, to maybe buy out some time to raise a proper Series A, likely next year. But yeah, to your point, we have product market fit. We have about 22,000 units out in the wild. And so we have some real numbers to go along with
Nice.
it, but just trying to also understand what is possible in the context in which we're playing right now, and then set ourselves up for the best opportunity for a high valuation.
Yeah, and hardware products require a lot of investment and time as well to develop. So as you're looking at the next phase, how do you currently approach your customer acquisition? How have your customers found you so far? What strategies have been working the best?
Yeah, our highest spend right now is on Facebook and Instagram. And because I would say the largest demographic sweet spot is probably between the like 40 to 65-year-old, which, um, are still Facebook users, unlike a younger generation. And so those have been working pretty well. Like everyone with the iOS change, we definitely were impacted some, but it's been our highest results thus far. And so we've been playing around with different content and what resonates with different consumers, just because there's a lot of people who come to swim for different reasons. And so we're trying to understand what messages resonate with what groups. And so that's been a big spend for us. And then recently we've started spending on SMS marketing and email marketing. And then the third phase is, because we have units out in people using them right now, we're leaning more into referral marketing and trying to beef that kind of program up, just because it's the lower of the acquisition costs, and there's nothing
Mm.
better than people referring your product to their friends. And so we've definitely seen that happen and are trying to you know massage that avenue a bit more, just because we're selling only on our website right now. We have no other channels. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the gold standard that we're working towards.
yeah, it makes a lot of sense with the referral strategy as well. And so what have your biggest challenges been when scaling your company through those channels? Yeah, what has it been like, and yeah, so, what are the results like so far?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, like hardware is very capital intensive, and so our margins are at the moment pretty slim. And we're working on that on the product side, but again, it adds into what your CAC is, especially on Facebook and Instagram. And as that rises, the challenge has been keeping the CAC in check so that we're margin positive on every sale. And so we've been playing around with different content. And I think what we realized after spending money on content, that sometimes like for lack of a better word, like the prettiest advertising doesn't bring the most ROI. Some of
Yeah.
our like user generated content actually results in the best performance for us. And so we've kind of, been able to focus on producing what we think will result in the best, even if it's not going to win, an Academy Award for acting or for kind of the production quality of it. So I think it's been a challenge just making sure that we're keeping disciplined around the CAC. And then specifically for our business, we have our hero product, but we also have an optional subscription. And so we're just starting to try and figure out, like, how do we gain customer loyalty and keeping customers coming back to us for the app and for other kind of swim related stuff when we don't have
Oh, nice.
another product necessarily to sell them, right? So we're not like a clothing brand where you can just keep coming. We have new styles and all that. And so that's kind of what we're trying to understand, is how do we market the app and make it more attractive and sticky, which from what I'm learning is a whole other marketing discussion than just selling a product.
Right. Yeah, yeah. With the subscriptions, it's an interesting model, building that CAC to LTV ratio and customer engagement so that you have high retention of those subscribers. And so I guess with the channels, what I was wondering is, yeah, you said you were spending on Facebook and Instagram for growth. Are there any other channels that you currently leverage, and how do you work on the targeting for those kinds of is it just based on demographics or interests or things like that?
Yeah, also Google would be the third one there. Yeah, so it's Facebook, Instagram, Google, and then we haven't really dived into TikTok and other sorts of digital channels, not because we don't think it's worth it, but just we're still quite disciplined around our spend. And if we're not going to be able to properly do it, then it's, it's not worth it because we're not going to get, um, real results. And also with kind of that influencer strategy, we think it could be really powerful.
Mm.
We just haven't spent there because we during COVID we had an inventory problem, so it didn't really make sense because if it did work, people were going to go to the website and have to wait to order, and so we didn't think kind of was the best time for action. But yeah, on our Facebook and Google, our ad team looks at demographics, behaviors, and what people have been searching, and then also trying to understand if there's parallel markets like behaviors around people who use Peloton or behaviors around
Mm.
people who do triathlons, and trying to target people that it might pique their interest and they fall in kind of that right demographic sweet spot that at least right now we're targeting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So with that, I'd love to give you your rapid returns tip of the day. So it was great
Please.
to hear about, yeah, your content strategy and how you're thinking about working with influencers. I think UGC is some of the best performing content on many of these paid social channels, especially for the kind of product that you're selling. And in many cases, what we've seen, the activations themselves, the content that's created from the influencer post or activation performs even better on those paid social channels than the activation itself. So definitely would recommend getting permission to use those pieces of content in your ads, and that's something that we've seen a lot of advertisers do successfully. And another thing that you mentioned is, so yeah, I think it could be a good multi-channel strategy with that content. And another thing that you mentioned is some of the challenges with mobile attribution and iOS 14. So something that we really advocate for is using your first-party data as much as possible, especially as you're going into this new model where you're charging a subscription and focusing on customer retention and loyalty with those subscriptions. Using the customer data, so those are things like the customer's emails or phone numbers, or whatever data that you have in order to create very targeted audiences is important. So these audiences could be for targeting them for repeat customer engagement, and this is completely separate from using a cookie-based tracking to create those audiences, uh, because you're capturing that data and you're able to not only retarget them to drive subscriptions and loyalty and other purchases, but also creating audience segments based on the data that you have already from existing customers, I think is really important. And that can contribute to your multi-channel strategy as well as you start to expand into other channels such as TikTok. You can use that same data-driven audience strategy and organic content that you created through the influencer activations to have a very strong multi-channel approach where it all supports each other. And it will also support your other efforts to grow the business in a more organic way too, such as with the referral system and basically your organic growth and other events that you're doing to bring traffic and sales to the business. So I definitely think it comes down to two main things. One, using the first party data to create targeted audiences and attribute sales even offline, to overcome challenges with mobile attribution and the deprecation of cookies. And two, building up a foundation of very compelling content, firstly by using your influencer activations and creating many different content variations that are going to drive performance on all of those channels.
It's great. So I just have to do that. It's simple, right?
Yeah, so that's something we would definitely
It's
recommend as a
helpful.
strategy, and that's what
Yeah.
we do with Otis. we work on creating those audiences and creating a very data-driven multi-channel strategy.
Just taking some copious notes. That's very helpful.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you being on the show. So thank you, Sheera, for joining me. Sheera from Zygo, and it's a very exciting product. So if you found this interview or the rapid returns tip helpful, please leave a comment below, and remember that when you sign up at meetotis.com, we'll match your first month's advertising spend, and so that you can keep on growing and iterating and generating good results to scale your business. So thanks so much.
Thank you.